So today we're going to talk a little bit about choosing where to actually locate your business before you've started.
When we started our business, we started as an online company, and then we grew into an events company. And I'll talk to you a little bit about why we did that. When you're online, it's like huge real estate. The world is your potential customer because you can ship products or you could reach people in different countries, different cities or whatever. But how do you get those customers to find out about your website? And that was the issue. So we found very early on, when we weren't seeing any online orders come in, that we had to be mobile. We had to get to different cities and get different exposure from different communities. So then we went into the trade show sector, which allowed us to be, in Toronto, in Guelph, in Ancaster. Once there, we talked about our website, our company, showcased our products, retrieved online orders back to our online store. From there, and from all those different collective customer base that we were building, then, years later, we were able to actually open up a storefront in the city that I grew up in and was pretty much born and raised in, which is Brampton.
So how long was that period before you even had a physical storefront?
So it took about three and a half years to go from online to having a physical storefront. So it was a process, and yeah, everything had to work together to now make the store a successful store.
Right. You don't want to jump right into that.
No.
Rent is expensive. You got to have employees there.
Yeah.
All kinds of different stuff going on. So when you first opened your store, how did you know that was the right move? I remember being at the grand opening. It was very powerful.
Yeah.
But how did you know for sure that was right?
And that's the thing. 99% of it is that you don't know if it's the right thing, and you're not going to find out. But there are different signs that you could look for. One of which, we used to do the farmers market, which was on Main Street. Right. So from there, we were building clientele, customer bases. And then when we actually opened up the shop, we said, okay, we can retain these customers that we met, but also where we're positioned, what's going on around us. There's the Rose Theater. All right, that's gonna help. There's a back entrance to our store. People could finish at the Rose Theater, come right through our doors. We're on a main street, but then there's the issue of parking. We have to consider not just our store location, but the location in general, the whole, kind of ecosystem around us, because it all works together.
Right, yeah. Exactly, yeah. And again, choosing the city as a whole, you said it's convenient because it's where you're from.
Right.
But potentially, if there wasn't an opportunity for a good storefront or reasonable rent or the right size, you may have potentially gone elsewhere.
Yes, and definitely, because especially when you're considering traffic, everyone knows you come to the city like Toronto, way more traffic, higher prices of rent. Right. Is it going to offset your rent costs? Cost is not a word. But then in Brampton, right, not as much traffic, but the rent's a little lower, and you're able to kind of maneuver it. I like to think of it as a pie. Do you want a big piece of the pie, or do you want your small part of a small part of a big pie, or do you want a big piece of a small pie? Right. And it all boils down to that, really.
Yeah, and when you've built that online relationship with different people as well, so they have the option of ordering regardless of where they live.
Exactly.
Which is great, and being that face, going to different events and conferences outside of Brampton.
Exactly. Now with your industry, it's a lot different than me having a storefront. What would you say is kind of those key factors you're looking for?
Well, it's not retail, right? Retail, direct consumer products, having that physical presence is huge, right? For, like you said, walk-in traffic, people that just discover you out of the blue, right? Mm-hmm. For Now Creative Group, also being from Brampton as a freelancer, I was very mobile, right? I can meet in every coffee shop in the world, but to have a team and to have places to film stuff like this, right? to host, let's say, to host workshops, to do brainstorming sessions with a big, beautiful whiteboard, that is something that you need a separate space for. And so we don't have to pay rent for a storefront in terms of that. but we need a little bit of a bigger workspace, right? So rent is more affordable. Co-working spaces are huge. So I would highly recommend a co-working space if you're an individual entrepreneur and you're going to be having a lot of meetings. Kind of leave the idea of the typical trying to find a seat somewhere, you know, or again, driving around all across the city. Have people come to you for these meetings, make it convenient, make the space your own. So co-working space, you can rent your own desk, or you can just drop in, right? If you're starting out and you're doing something as a side project, for example, you don't have to commit fully, but you can rent for a few hours a week, a few hours a month. So for Now Creative Group, having that physical space though, like the first co-working space in 2013, that was like the trigger for us to like get on the next level, you know? And it really felt like it pushed us to launch Now Creative Group. Before that, I was just a freelancer.
Are you saying that it kind of has like a psychological aspect to actually getting a location?
It definitely does, yeah. And it's not just the physical space, but it's the people in the space, right? So co-working space, you've got other like-minded people, people with their own businesses, even potential clients, right? Our first co-working space, 5 or 6 of the people we ended up working with over the course of the year that we were there.
So relationships.
Absolutely, relationships. So when you're locating your business, Toronto, for someone who works with a lot of startups and small businesses, definitely Toronto's a great hub. However, we have the space in Toronto, we have the option of working elsewhere, and still a big part of places like Brampton and Mississauga. You can be a member of your local board of trade, for example, in different cities, which is awesome.
That's important.
Yeah, and just attending those networking events. Don't just kind of hide in your office once you have one, right? You've got to still be out there. So yeah, so that's our advice. I guess very different industries. I guess you could always start online, start with co-working, and see how it grows from there.
See you soon.